I'm so obsessed with hiring that I could literally go down to stalking people and calling them a million times. I have no ego when I pursue candidates to join me. And I'll tell you why I say this. Once you get a fantastic person on the team, a lot of your workload moves, right? And the biggest difference between us and many others is a lot of people show no ego when they're dealing with clients and show a lot of ego when they're hiring.
Yeah.
And I think it's better if there's no ego on both sides.
Hello everyone, my name is Apalak and welcome to another episode of Teal. I've had the good fortune of having many guests in the past, learned from them, spoken to them and understand their journeys. Today's episode is no different. I have a young leader with me who's done not only great for himself, but great things for his organization. With this quick introduction, let me introduce today's guest. It's Mr. Faiz Shakir, who is the MD of Nutanix India. Faiz, a very warm welcome to Teal.
The pleasure's equally mine, Apalak. I've been looking forward to this. I'm really excited to be here.
So Faiz, before we start our conversation, no conversation starts on a better note with understanding the person, right? You're a very successful man and you run a very, very successful organization and we are so proud of that. But before that, how did you get here? What has been your childhood like? How were you as a kid? You liked studies? You did not like studies? What were your extracurriculars? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, you're taking me back in some time.
Please.
But then, typical Bangalore boy, grew up not very far from where we are recording this.
Wonderful.
My father was with the flying crew with the forces, with HAL as well as the defense establishment for the longest time. But so he was pretty busy.
Okay.
My mom was always around taking care of us.
Wonderful.
And I have two older brothers. So the three boys in one house with no internet back in the day and limited television thanks to Doordarshan, which meant we played a lot on the street.
Oh, you did?
We fought a lot with each other. WWE was a new thing back in the day.
And that was the time when it was WWF.
Exactly. I call it WWE now, but it was WWF back then. So we've gone through a lot of great moments, right? Because even if you fought with each other like we did, my brothers and I, you had nowhere else to go the next morning. You still went back and played with them. And those moments are absolutely special. So my childhood was with my family, with cousins, friends. Not a bad student, pretty decent student actually. Probably not the best, but not too bad either. And somehow my parents never expected me to be, say, a class topper. They just wanted me to do well, have a good time. There was always emphasis on not just being studious, but also being good at sport and doing a lot of things. So it was good. Played a lot of sport as a kid.
So schooling, college, all from Bangalore?
All in Bangalore. Studied in a lovely school called Bishop Cotton's and went on to do my university with Christ College, which is pretty famous over here.
Yes.
I was amongst the few kids who chose not to pursue engineering. For a good student not to pursue engineering back in the 90s was almost as stupid as it gets. But again, credit to my mom and dad. They never forced me.
Okay.
And I was also one of those few 16, 17-year-olds who wanted to be in sales, which is unheard of.
I was about to ask.
Yeah.
But there was something that got you into this, right?
You're right. I think it was my oldest brother.
Okay.
He used to work for Airtel back in the day. Airtel was actually JT Mobile when it first came to India or Bangalore for that matter. And I remember he used to have this motorbike, formal clothes, a tie. And I was like, wow, that looks like a very cool job. Had no clue what it meant. But somehow I wanted to be in sales ever since then. And I was laughed a lot at because when you would tell teachers, you would tell relatives that you're not pursuing engineering for a decent student, and then you want to do sales. They're like, are you out of your mind? And back then, sales meant door-to-door selling biscuits and utensils, right? Literally. So that's where it all started. But somehow, one of the few kids who actually ended up doing what they wanted to do when they were 16.
As you know what, you remind me of my starting days in research. Now probably I'm an analyst who has an opportunity to talk to people like you. You spoke about door to door. I started my career in market research in Bangalore. I used to work for a company called TNS Global. And I used to do door-to-door surveys. But what I've learned in those formative years, I take it with me even now with lots of pride.
Wow.
So I listen and I hear exactly what you're saying. So sales is something that, I mean, I haven't heard or come across many people who harbor the love of sales at that age.
Yeah.
But what got you into technology, if I may ask?
So by accident.
Okay.
My dream job was, this is when I was doing my business management in Christ College, and my dream job was to sell credit cards. Don't ask me why.
I won't.
Yeah, I just, as random as a 19 or a 20-year-old would be, I just felt, imagine working for this big brand like a Citibank or American Express and meeting HNIs and convincing them to take your product. Not a bad thought. Good thought. And that's all I knew of back then. Probably also had a little to do with my other brother who was in banking sales.
Okay.
So probably that also rubbed off a little bit on me. And then campus placements happened. Now, Christ College had one of the best graduation programs.
Okay.
And they had the absolute best recruiters walking in. The Big Four were there. They had some very illustrious names.
Okay.
And I didn't attend any of them because none of them were sales jobs. And the placement officer, I was super clear. And I don't know if I can say this on this interview, but the starting salary with the Big Four back then was like, I don't know, was it 22,000 rupees, which 20 years back felt like a lot of money. For a boy from a middle-class family, that was game-changer money.
Right.
And not going for those interviews, and forget it. Normally, the logic was at least go and don't take up the job. I was clear, I don't even want to go because if I go and get it, somebody who really needs it would not end up getting it. So why even bother, right? So, and then eventually...
Nobody took this thought though.
I don't know. And this was just, it was natural. It's not like somebody told me about it or we discussed it. It was just natural. And then God bless the placement officer in Christ University. He said there's this nice little tech company called New Wave Computing. Okay. They're hiring people. I got to know through a source. This is the number, call them and see if they want to meet you. So my first ever cold call happened from college. I cold called them and I said, I'm from this college. I hear you're looking for sales guys. They said, come over. We're happy to start with a 4-digit salary and we'll see where this goes.
Interject once. What I gather from our initial conversation is you come from a very close-knit family.
Yeah.
Your parents have had a big influence on you and your brothers.
Yeah.
When you were forfeiting these big paying jobs, what was their reaction to this?
See, I think I also come from reasonable privilege. I must confess here. And I'll tell you what I mean by privilege. Nobody was dependent on this 21-year-old's earnings. So my dad had just about retired. He had taken care of his future in his own modest way. So when I say privilege, there was nothing that there was no opulence, but there was privilege that I didn't need to earn money to get something taken care of. My money would be my money, at least in the early formative work years. So they were like, do what you want to do. And I think that has been a standout of my mom and dad throughout, because in the 90s, and I remember very clearly because it's not too long ago, all of my cousins were going to the US. Everyone was probably doing engineering. There was a lot of peer pressure, and we didn't face the brunt of making our decisions, my 2 older brothers and I. It's my parents who faced the brunt, saying, what are you doing by not setting them on the right track?
That's why I asked this
question. So they were, I'm sure they've had their share of taunts, or they've had their share of, days where they've probably questioned themselves. But to be fair, I don't remember a single minute when I was coaxed or forced into doing something. Of course, my mom hoped I would become a lawyer. She felt I speak well. Even back then, I would participate in debates in college and other events.
Loss is sales gain.
Oh, I would be a very bad lawyer. I can promise you that. I would make a terrible lawyer. So it's certainly not loss.
Okay.
They probably gained a better lawyer in the process. But I'm glad it all worked out. And that's how that happened. So those decisions were made then. Coming back to your original question, I went through the process, got the job, and ended up spending 6 years in that company, New Wave Computing. Everything I've learned, everything I know today is those 6 years. So grateful to them to pick up someone as raw as me and invest time, money, energy on someone like me. So eternally grateful to New Wave.
I see so much of commonality here, Faiz, because I I give a lot of value to gratitude. Something that we imbibe from parents, right? I worked for an organization for 10 years, right? Now I run this small organization, which I'm extremely proud of for whatever small, big that we do. But like you said, because what I see in your career graph, you work for them for about 6 years.
Yeah.
You give a lot of credit to them.
Yeah.
You're so proud of their lineage
Yeah.
they come from. You worked out for more than 8 years with Nutanix too.
Yeah.
Right? In today's day, and I'm sure and I hope there are a lot of young listeners listening to this.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Because these conversations
Yeah.
at the end of the day are meant for the entire spectrum.
Yeah.
Especially from the youngster.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking this is loyalty is tested severely these days.
Yeah.
I see many folks, many young folks, thinking of leaving organizations in a span of 1.5 years.
Yeah.
They touch 2, they think they've overstayed their stay in an organization.
Yeah.
You stayed in an organization for 8 years and counting, and God willing, many more.
Yeah, and this is my 20th year in work.
Exactly.
And this is my 3rd job. So 6, and now 8. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What would you, I mean, I'm sure there are many things that have worked for you.
Yeah.
But if you had to single out, 8 years of stint, and now you lead Nutanix in India.
Yeah.
What would you single the few factors
Yeah.
which have enabled this beautiful journey of yours?
Yeah. I think one has to be, and this question's caught me off guard, so I'm going to collect my thoughts, right? But
Please.
I think one is I've been very honest to myself throughout this process. And by being honest to myself, there's been a lot of self-awareness on what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, which I think, unfortunately, a lot of people sometimes just don't do this inward-looking exercise enough.
Right.
And a lot of people out there are far more talented than I am. When I look around, I'm surprised I've gotten to where I've gotten, lead the kind of business I lead the kind of people I lead, because pretty much everyone on my leadership team is way smarter than I am. And that all stems from the fact that there's self-awareness as to what is it that I probably don't do well enough, and how do I bridge or fill those gaps by hiring people who do that better than me. So that's been my leadership journey. But if you look at the larger aspect of my overall journey, right? And I never knew how to describe this before till I heard it once. So I'll attribute this to the person I heard it from. But it's this term called long-term greed.
Okay.
I am greedy, but my greed is long-term, which means, to put it in very simplistic terms, and I'll go back to my career itself, every year, there was an opportunity to get another job, earn 20% more, 30% more.
Right.
There is that incremental growth.
Yes.
But sometimes by just staying invested, you make up more than that in multiples by just staying invested. So for me, it's always been long-term greed. And I'll tell you what I mean by long-term greed. If you look at Nutanix today, 8 years, the first few years were tough. When you're a startup, not many people recognize you. It's tough, right? Because it's also questions your own ability. Because in the past, I've also worked for a very large company like EMC, where the visiting card would help me walk in.
Absolutely.
And the visiting card was far more powerful than I was. I think Nutanix is there today. But 6 years back, 7 years back, 8 years back when I started, we didn't have any brand recall, and rightly so. So it took a lot of your own hard work to message what the company wants you to message. Great company, great product, but it was you who had to take that message. And to take that message, you need to get an appointment for starters. And that was all the hard work. So that hard work back then looked tough, but you realize that if this takes off, you're in for something special. And that's the long-term greed, saying, you know what, I think this is a beautiful baby which is going to grow into something even better. Stay invested and keep nurturing it, as opposed to giving up on it. So long-term greed has really helped me. And just surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you. If there are 10 of us in my office, I would probably be 8th or 9th in terms of level of smartness or knowledge or ability to do a few things.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So I learned a new term called long-term greed.
Yeah.
Beautiful term.
Yeah.
Don't take me wrong.
Yeah, I
You're
wouldn't.
a young man,
Yeah.
right? And you lead a very, very thriving organization.
Yeah.
And you also admitted that they are the best
Yeah.
that is in the business.
Yeah.
What will it take for a young leader like you to run such an organization? Because to be an able leader, you need to also inspire.
Yes.
How do you take this up?
So there are 2-3 facets to this, right? One is externally, not having gray hair can hurt you. Because when you walk into a meeting, and I say this with a lot of modesty, people look at you and they say, this guy? Because he doesn't look anything like, say, a managing director that they've typically met. Should look like, because everyone's got biases.
Yes.
And this bias doesn't fit into that. So the only way to break that bias is by adding value to those meetings, those conversations, or to the job, right? You can walk in, and if it is going to come and, as we say in India colloquially, come and just speak English and walk out, it means nothing. But if I get the job done for them, I go above and beyond for them, or I'm so well read, I'm so well prepared for those meetings that they truly value the conversation. See, why do people on your team take you to a meeting? One is out of courtesy, or for you to do something that they've not been able to accomplish on those meetings.
Right.
And that is when you prepare for it, you understand their businesses. So this is the external aspect of it. Internally, what is it that people want from you? They want you to take care of them, give them an opportunity to thrive, ensure there are no politics in the process. And if they see growth, who cares about the boss's age? It's immaterial. You could be 75 years old and be a terrible leader. You could be 10 years younger than I am, and you could still be a great leader. So I don't think that matters. I've gone through a lot of learning. I didn't wake up one fine day and suddenly had all of this. But I think there's one thing that I've always had throughout, and it's not only after I became a leader, it's always been, I've been very self-assured about what I bring to the table. And which is why, again, I've really gone out there and hired people in the team who are far more talented than I am. And I don't say this because it sounds right. A business like Nutanix, and I'm sorry I'm taking some time to answer this question, right? And I want to break this down.
This conversation is all about you and all about understanding you.
Is always been a David versus Goliath story, right? The large organizations we compete with outnumber us in multiples. So if I can take 2 people to an important meeting and go, they can get 20. So at any given point of time, I'm always outnumbered. So in such a situation, they can outnumber me, but is there a chance for me to outsmart them? And that can only happen if you hire. So I'm obsessed with hiring. I'm so obsessed with hiring that I could literally go down to stalking people and calling them a million times. I have no ego when I pursue candidates to join me. And I'll tell you why I say this. Once you get a fantastic person on the team, a lot of your workload moves, right? And the biggest difference between us and many others is a lot of people show no ego when they're dealing with clients and show a lot of ego when they're hiring. And I think it's better if there's no ego on both sides. And when you're hiring, you got to convince.
The stakeholders remain the same.
Absolutely. And if you want to hire someone who's doing a great job and already doing well in another organization, you better have a solid reason to hire them, for them to come onto your side. So if that means you need to go and convince them multiple times, so be it. So we do that. And I've been a beneficiary where I got hired into Nutanix also like that. So it's not like, again, this is just me. I've also been very lucky that I've had great managers in the past who I've learned from, right? And a couple of managers also have learned what not to do. Right. So when you learn from people that you work for, you try to imbibe them. So great teams and hiring has been something which has helped us.
You remind me of a thing that my father always used to say. My father was a professor in IT for several years. He is now part of the corporate world for almost 30 years now and still working at the age of 78. He is my go-to man. He is my hero. He says if a good manager is one who has the ability and the gumption to hire better than himself. It is not for his selfish needs or for the larger good.
True.
So I think you kind of echoed what he has always told me. It takes a big person to take that stand too. I said,
I think I've been very selfish. On the contrary, I think I'm very selfish as a person. I'm so selfish that I want the business to do well.
That's what I said. The larger,
Yeah,
you were
long-term
working with a
greed.
larger
Yeah.
group.
So if the business looks great, if Nutanix is thriving or whatever
Right.
is thriving, I look good. And if in the process they're better people, why not? I mean, if you go back, and I'm a cricket buff, Saurav Ganguly was probably never the best batsman in the team, right? He had Sachin, he had VVS Lakshman, he had Rahul Dravid. He still had them on his core leadership team. He couldn't field half as well as a Yuvraj Singh or a Mohammad Kaif back in the day. The youngsters listening to this show will be like, who are we talking about? We're talking about a 20-year-old team. But he built that team with people around him who were probably a lot better. And he led. I think it's very similar.
Leader.
He was a great leader. Yeah. And he had people who were better than him.
Anyone who, if not emulate,
Yeah.
but you look up to in the professional world?
I don't think there's a single person. I've been very lucky with some leaders that I've worked for.
Okay.
Apalak, my first leader in New Wave, Vasu.
Okay.
Everything I've learned has been from him. So I'll be eternally grateful to him, and I still am. He's almost like my guru.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And he's someone I always look up to. He's someone who always is someone, if something good happens, I want him to know. Right? He's that's the relationship.
I understand.
I've had a couple of great leaders through my career, right? In EMC, Nutanix, I've been so blessed to have great leaders. I joined Nutanix as an absolute individual contributor because there was nothing else back in the day. To see this growth, someone out there has really taken care of me, and more than one person. So I've been very, very lucky. So professionally, also again, right, I come from a place of privilege where I don't choose my leaders.
Right.
So to have good leaders is probably being lucky.
Very lucky.
I'm very lucky, and I have no doubt about that. If I didn't have good leaders, who knows, I wouldn't be sitting with you today.
Right.
So yeah, I'm extremely, extremely grateful. But at a personal level, just like you said, my father's my hero. Is purely because, and you know what, he won't even know this. Because in India, you don't go and tell your dad he's your hero, right? But just his honesty, the way he carried himself, the way he has been the person that has been with a lot of high integrity throughout his life, is something that I wish I can live up to. I still have some time to go. So to live up to that over a period of time, because integrity is easy when things are going well.
Yes.
Integrity is tested when things are not going well. And to maintain that level of integrity through your life is something I hope I don't shy away from.
Right. Very well said. But Faiz, you spent now close to 20 years, like you said?
Exactly. I completed 20 years of work, I think, a month back.
Yeah. So 20 years of work, and these 20 years, it kind of mine too. I mean, I've tracked the tech space for now for close to 2 decades.
Yeah.
As an analyst, I feel super privileged because it's these 20 years when a lot
has happened.
The 20 before that, probably not so much. I don't know about the next 20 that's going to happen. But these 20 have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
Any pivotal points across these 20 years when you see, and I'll come to when I'm even try to come through, because while there have been a lot of fancy technology terms and jargons that have come over time, somewhere IT infra has been the bedrock of all this innovation.
Yeah.
Right? How do you see IT infra evolve over the period of last 20 years? I have my take on this, but today it's your take.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd love to get your take as well. But if you look at not just the 20, right? If you break it down over the last 4 decades, and I'll focus on your question, which is the last 2.
Yeah.
But they say the 80s was all about the mainframe.
Right.
The 90s was actually what really started for the last 20 years. The 90s was this combination of Windows and Intel, Wintel as it was called, right? Which really made IT infra more accessible to the entire world.
Right.
Prior to that, supercomputers and mainframes were not easy babies for people to manage.
Right.
So 90s was really the start, and that's when we all started seeing personal computers as well, right? So I think the last 2 decades, essentially, from an IT infra perspective, with Windows and Intel's emergence, that decade was predominantly virtualization became a big, important, critical technology in our part of the world, which is enterprise. Cloud computing in the latter part of 2010 became this norm and continues to be this massive norm. And web scale architecture, which is basically social media networks, what Google and Facebook ran. And now, of course, AI. So a lot has happened in the last 2 decades. But I think public cloud has been this massive driver, multiplier, force multiplier that has really made technology and infrastructure accessible to any mom and pop shop. Gone are the days that I had to set up something physically to run a show. I could swipe a credit card and run it in a matter of seconds. I think that was the biggest game changer.
Next question was around, tell me something. While we hear so much about cloud, rightfully so, what it does to IT infra, the way we look at things, it helps everybody set up the shops in a matter of jiffy. But having said so, we've also seen while cloud has thrived, on-prem also continues with equal abandon. Right? But do you feel somewhere cloud, the way it operates, has contributed significantly how we look at IT infra from an on-prem setup? While technically look at it, you have on-prem and then you have cloud. Somewhere, my personal opinion is cloud has been a very big catalyst to see the way we look at IT infra in-house.
Of course.
What is your view to this?
Well, I think firstly, and if I could try to simplify this, right?
Please.
Public cloud is, and if I have to give an analogy, it's like if I go to Bombay for 4 days, rather call it Mumbai, right? I'll be politically correct. If I go to Mumbai for 3 or 4 days, I would stay in a hotel.
Right.
If I go to Mumbai for 2 weeks, I'll probably still stay in a hotel. I like the housekeeping. I like the fact that I walk out of the room, the room is made, it's ready. I don't need to worry about food, laundry, nothing. It's all taken care of.
Right.
Suddenly I get a call and says, Faiz, you need to stay in Mumbai for 6 months.
Right.
I'm not sure if I can afford to pay those hotel bills for 6 months. I may take a place on rent. And then I realized that I want to stay in Mumbai a lot longer than 6 months. I may just end up buying my own place. So if I'm there short term, my 5-star hotel is like the public cloud. My workloads are inconsistent. There's lack of predictability. It could be a shorter project. I think public cloud makes perfect sense, right? Because you cannot be buying a house or building a data center using that same language for a short span or an unpredictable period of time. But if it's longer, building your own data center or using a service provider can be far more conducive. And to your part question, which was public cloud has driven a certain, yes, it has driven efficiencies in private data centers as well.
So for instance, we talk about concept of containerization.
Exactly.
Microservice.
Exactly.
Application modernization. Why are we shifting from, say, a monolithic architecture to microservices? Because it helps, it works. So I see the best being gravitating and vice versa.
And if you look at it today, right, and this change has happened just in 3-4 years. It's not even a long change. In 3-4 years, there was this huge fierce debate saying on-premise versus public cloud.
Right.
Today, no one, including companies like Nutanix, are talking about that. Initially, Nutanix would say, I'm going to get you the best of the cloud world on-premise and give you an AWS-like feeling or a Microsoft Azure kind of feeling on-premise.
Right.
But today, we say, you know what? You want to run it on-premise? We're the right guys. You want to run it on the public cloud? I could do that for you using our offerings and our partnership with the likes of AWS or Azure for that matter. Or you want to use a service provider and look at a hybrid strategy, I could do that for you. So multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, which could be private or public, they're all interlinked today. And to your point, I think the public cloud adoption drove companies like us to saying, how do I give customers a seamless experience where applications could move back and forth, legacy applications could still run on-premise, but with an option to move back to the cloud if the need arises, have a disaster recovery site on the cloud and on-premise, for example, or private cloud. Just the permutations and combinations are many, many, many. And I think entire generation of companies is going to be built on this format called hybrid multi-cloud.
Right. Tell me something, since we're speaking of data centers, right? So when we hear the term data center modernization, it means many things.
Yes.
But for the uninitiated, I'd like you to explain when a company embarks on data center modernization, in this current capacity, what does it mean? But there's another part of this question, which is because it's subjective, right? What would, in your view, be data center modernization, say 5 years down the line.
Yeah.
Because what composes of modernization today may not
Will not be modernization tomorrow. Yeah.
How do you see this?
So I think firstly, data center modernization has been going on for a very long time.
Exactly.
In different facets.
Right.
I mean, it's not a new phenomenon, right? This has been going on for years and years right now. Today, any modernization exercise, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, and to again simplify the conversation, because you'd get there's so many different ways to modernize, is to take out complexity. Now, complexity could be I'm using 3-tier infrastructure, which is disparate systems, servers separately, storage separately, virtualization as a separate arm, security, networking, all these components in most private data centers are still run in isolation of each other and managed by different people with different lines of expertise. That modernization for us is, can we make that converged in a way, put it all together, make the entire user interface super easy. So the entire ethos of modern companies like Nutanix is, can I take away the complexity of managing all of this? Can I manage all these disparate architectures and infrastructures through one common console, single pane of glass, and bring in a GUI experience like, say, the Apple iPhone, which is easy to use, very intuitive, as you rightly said, and you don't need to be the smartest kid to manage this stuff. The smarter ones need to worry about the applications and the business. The infrastructure can be managed by generalists. So if that same infrastructure
software helps you do that,
because it's one common line of software, managing it through a common console, managing multiple data centers again through a common console, all of that. And as you rightly said, having a console which is intuitive brings in an aspect of ease of management. Before, Apalak, you'll know this, right? It was cool to have complex stuff, because the more the complex, the better you were, right? It was like that. Today, nobody has time for complexity. If I need to come up with a new business and my product team says I need to go live in 4 days, you can't go and tell him I'm going to take 6.5 months to install this new application on this mainframe machine. The question is, can I go live in 48 hours? And you need systems and infrastructure through modernization, which can help the business go live overnight. That's what modernization as of today is. Over a period of 5 years, I think, and again, I don't know, but I think one aspect's for sure, there are a lot of AI models are going to come into play. Again, take care of a lot of aspects of infrastructure, which today is manual, would probably move into AI modeling to some extent. I'm not saying it's going to take over completely, but there will be some aspects of it taken care of. The second piece, of course, is a system where the users will not worry where the applications are lying. It could be lying on a public cloud, it could be lying on-premise, it could be lying in a telco.
Application anywhere.
Oh, it's going to be application anywhere, and the only thing they would be worried about would be SLAs, uptime, and performance.
Right.
Without actually worrying about, which even today, most people are still worried about where it resides. And yes, compliance will always be factors, but if I park the compliance issue aside, this could be anywhere and it doesn't matter to me. And there's going to be softwares which actually help you move those applications to places which bring in efficiency, which bring in cost savings, and bring you the performance that you prefer. So there's going to be a lot of automation in this process. So imagine this time, not very far away from now, where I don't decide where those apps lie. There's systems taking care of that in auto mode. And I think that's what probably modernization from an infrastructure would look like.
Very nicely put.
Yeah.
Tell me something, you touched upon disparate systems.
Yeah.
And as we are aware, like I said, modern data center has several approaches.
Yes.
One of the ways of doing that is through convergence.
Yes.
And that's where we've seen our IT infrastructure being disparate systems to a composable architecture to a hyper-converged, which is where we come to HCI.
Yeah.
Now, hyper-converged infrastructure has come along.
Yeah.
Right? Has come like every technology.
Yeah.
And I have been an analyst for this period of time. I've seen the teething issues with adoption new technologies like HCI.
Yeah.
My question to you is, when you talk to CIOs on a daily basis, business owners, right?
Yeah.
Do you see those challenges being resolved over a period of time? They were just dealing with nothing else? Or do you see with the advent of how how HCI was in say version 1.0.
Yeah.
Now we have much more to offer.
Yeah.
Does it compound the challenges of the CIO?
Yeah.
Or the challenges have changed but they still continue? How do you look at this?
Yeah, I think firstly, every product, every invention, every innovation goes through its own lines and times of maturity, right? And Nutanix is no stranger to that. We're a young company. We've been actively selling in the market for the last 12 years. The company is about 14 odd years old. And we really gained prominence about 10 years back. And like every technology, there'll be early adopters and there'll be laggards on the other side. But what matters is the early adopters help us gain trust, can become potentially references. But what truly matters in the growth and scale of the company is the early majority and the late majority. If my professor of marketing watches this, he'll be proud because I remember his theory well, right? But coming back to that majority, that is when your product needs to be mature. And like any new offering in the market, irrespective of how ready it is for mainstream, people want to say, let me not run production on it in the early days. I don't want to take that level of risk. So I think a lot of it has to do with people being conservative, and rightly so. Absolutely. We all do that. We all do that, right? I mean, what are the odds I would have bought an electric car 5 years back in India? I didn't want to be the first guy.
Test it, you will see how people are
buying it and take a call. And also, to be fair, the product also goes through its own lines of maturity. There's a lot of security, which is such an important factor today, which gets baked and built into the entire platform. But I can tell you today, if you look at it, right, and if you look at the Nutanix story, and we're the pioneers of HCI. So when I say Nutanix, it's almost synonymous with HCI. But today, HCI for us is hybrid multi-cloud as opposed to hyper-converged infrastructure. But HCI in its truest form, has come a long way. And today, if you look at it, the largest banks in India, 10 out of the 10 largest banks in India use Nutanix for production environments. If you look at some of the largest hospitals run life-saving technologies on the Nutanix platform. You run a lot of civil services, civic services of the government run on Nutanix as a platform.
Ask you,
sure.
Just for the uninitiated, because they don't want technical people.
No, I understand,
When you say 10 on 10, use your infrastructure on a production environment, what could the reasons be? But let's say, when you say virtualization, again, for those who may know or may not know, when companies go for server virtualization, cost was a big reason.
True.
When we talk about hyper-convergence, what is cost still the only reason, or there are other reasons compound?
No, I think there are a few reasons. I think if there are three principally strong reasons. One is your ability to go live really fast, because there are no multiple systems to manage. I have a project, I have a workload, I need to go live. There's nothing faster than hyper-converged infrastructure.
Time to market
is the fastest from a HCI perspective compared to anything else that was there in the past. And I say faster, I mean significantly a fraction of the time to go live. The second point is the total cost of ownership. One is the buying cost. In the buying cost, you may not see a difference. But when you run this over a period of 5 years, we have reports running savings and ROIs which have been extremely gratifying for customers, which is why we've got a customer retention rate in the high 90s, because once they buy, they keep coming back. I mean, some of these banks I spoke of, they started with 10, 12 nodes. Today, they run 2,000 nodes on us, for example. So we've gone a long way, right? And they continue to stay invested with us. Winning the first order is easy. I mean, may not seem easy then, but it's easy. But retaining that customer and keeping them happy and having a relationship of equals through that 5 to 7 years that we've gone through is what we're really proud of. And that's been the growth journey of Nutanix. So a lot of these banks, obviously, and many others, I think go-to-market was really fast, total cost of ownership, and also our support. We've got a massive setup in India, for example. We've got a 2,000-seater office not very far from here. We've got a lot of support engineers physically in India. A lot of the softwares that we build are made by engineers sitting out of our offices. And our support NPS, our Net Promoter Score, is over 90. Now, I'll put things in perspective. If anyone's watching this show, there's no infrastructure company, nobody, who's got a Net Promoter Score anywhere remotely close to us. So if you go and compare us to our peers or to the companies who are way larger than us, their Net Promoter Score is way behind. And this is a score of promoters and detractors, and yet to have a net promoter score of 90 is unheard of in the market. So I think the way we support people, the security aspect, go-to-market, and the total cost of ownership has been what's been the driving force of growth for HCI, Nutanix, maturity, and a lot of industry collaboration which has happened over the years. For example, again, right, to make it easy for the viewers, we didn't have a relationship with SAP till say 2015, 2016. Now, when you have a relationship with SAP and HANA certified, EC2 certified, business critical application, there's so many more customers who are happy to work with you because it's two companies who are working together. Like that, our relationship with AWS or Microsoft Azure and so many other partners, the ecosystem partners that we work with, have made a big change to all of this.
Tell me one thing. The examples that you gave, like 10 on 10 of the top banks work with you. Help me understand, most of the large organizations, right, have a lot of legacy infrastructure.
Yes.
Now, because maybe I'm not a technical person.
Yeah.
Help me understand one thing. When I think of large organizations, I think of legacy infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I think of disparate systems.
Yeah.
Right? Now, there might be a CIO out there who's saying, I know my legacy infrastructure is there. I spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I also want to understand how HCI helps me.
Yeah.
Question is, do they have to wait for a refresh to happen? That's only when they can deploy HCI?
Yeah.
Or can they deploy HCI on the existing legacy infrastructure?
Yeah. So there's no one approach to this.
Okay.
It purely depends on the legacy systems, which pace they are. So if you look at all the customers and business users who have adopted Nutanix, not everyone has adopted us only through a refresh, through a greenfield opportunity. You also get a lot of opportunities where you want to move out a part of the application onto a new setup. So that is where we possibly come in and saying, why don't you start with this cluster for now? And you can slowly phase out everything over a period of time.
When the 10 on 10 bags.
Exactly. So it's always gone through that process. And again, Nutanix is built on a scale-out architecture. Now, again, to not have a technical conversation, is the scale-out architecture something like a Lego building block.
Okay.
You can start with a small block and you keep on adding on that block as and when you need. The beauty of Nutanix, though, is every block has its own engine. So you're not just dependent on this. If I have to compare this to, and I've never used this example before, so this is the first time, right? It's like a train. And normally a train has an engine in front and there are lots of bogies with no power of their own. And maybe there's an engine at the back as well, which is propelling this and sending this sending this forward. But the beauty of Nutanix is every bogie or compartment has its own little engine. So you can go on adding as much as you want because each bogie comes with its own engine. And the other very exciting part of Nutanix is this journey of adding compartments can happen over years. So my first 10 bogies may be 100 horsepower bogies.
Right.
But now there's new technology. The next 10 could be 200 horsepower. So it's not like, but those aren't compatible with this and we need to only keep it to that engine. As opposed to legacy systems where you just had controllers.
Right.
And whatever you add, you can add, but those controllers remain common.
Right.
So the more you add, the performance takes a dip. Whereas in our case, the more you add, the performance actually improves over a period of time. And because we're a software company, all of the software just runs across this seamlessly. And you can run on commodity infrastructure, hardware, you can run it on any hardware. No challenges there at all.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Faiz, with this, I conclude a serious line of questioning.
Yeah.
But I have 5 more questions.
Sure.
Which you have to answer as quickly as possible.
Okay.
And I'm sure you won't be put in a spot.
Yeah.
So my first question.
This is my first ever rapid fire. I'm excited.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All the best to you.
Thank you.
The first question is, outside of your professional life, what's one personal achievement you're particularly proud of?
I think being a combination of a good son, good husband and a good dad, I think I do a decent job at it. With all the madness at work, I still find time and prioritize this, and I'm proud of that.
You get a 10 on 10 from me at least.
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's not easy at all.
But I know I do it, yeah. I mean, I could be anywhere, but I want to be back home on that Friday evening so that I get the weekend off, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, the second question is, if you could have dinner with any 3 people from history, who would they be and why?
From history?
People who are not anymore.
Yeah. Wow. I think Mahatma Gandhi for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Muhammad Ali, the boxer. I'm just so inspired
Okay.
by everything he does and he's done. And maybe Prophet Muhammad.
They're all leaders in their own
Yeah.
right, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, lovely. The third question is, what's a common myth about leadership that you found to be completely untrue?
That the leader always knows everything.
Okay.
Always almost untrue, yeah. The leader knows the least.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Right, right. Now, this is a question that I think is closer to your home. Rank in the order of importance of these value systems: loyalty, sincerity, perfection, honesty, and integrity.
In order of preference,
Yeah.
perfection would be last.
Okay.
I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I think honesty, integrity, you said sincerity?
Sincerity and
Yeah.
loyalty.
And loyalty would be fourth. Yeah. And last would be perfection, because I don't think there's anything called perfection.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then last question in the rapid fire is, who's a leader in the sports industry that you
Yeah.
admire, and what specific quality do you appreciate about them?
It's changed over a period of time.
Tell me now.
Now, I think I'm a huge Virat Kohli fan.
Okay.
Huge Virat Kohli fan.
Okay.
There's just so much about that I just look up to and I like, and everything, the way he carries himself. I think Virat Kohli has been stunning. I think
And it's beyond what he comes to the field.
I'm not talking about
Exactly.
just the runs he scores.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows he's probably the
Right.
greatest batsman
Right.
of this generation.
Right.
There's been Sachin in the past, of course, and there've been so many more. But there's just so much more that I look up to him and I watch him and I hear how he's carried himself, the way
Right.
he's shaped himself, the way he's grown as a person, the brash boy to where he is today.
Right.
I think he's a green flag, as the youngsters call it today, right? And I think the other sportsmen that there's so many, it's caught me off guard. I've had the good fortune of spending some time with Leander Paes,
Oh, really?
and I thought he really put tennis on the map for
Yeah,
India,
for sure.
without a doubt, right? And I tell you what is so special about Leander Paes for me, and anyone who's followed tennis and Indian tennis, he was obviously a great doubles player. But the minute, you had the Tiranga behind him and he played for India,
Right.
he was just this phenomenal singles player as well, who could never do that in professional tennis, but in Davis Cup tennis or the Olympics, he would just play 5x, 10x to his level. So for someone to do that, not for your personal self, but for your country, to me, and I know he's spoken about this, and as I said, I'm very lucky to have spent a lot of time with him to understand this from him. I mean, that is
just takes you to a different
special.
level.
It just takes, imagine I'm good and I suddenly become excellent when I'm playing tennis for the country. He's the same person who's beaten Sampras, Ivanisevic, almost beat Andre Agassi, and so many more singles wins, all while representing the country, right? And the same person, when he played, was not even in the top 100 ranking for most of his career. So for me, that is special, absolutely special.
I love
in,
the examples
Yeah,
taken, and for the reasons that
Yeah.
they choose to be your
yeah, absolutely. No, I think and there's so many more. You've caught me off guard. And probably when I'm driving back home today, I would have 5 more names.
Let me know one-on-one.
But yeah, there's just so many heroes, so many youngsters, so many special people that you keep coming across who make you proud. Just the recent test series, right? You see these new boys playing for India and you're like, wow, these guys have some, like Rishabh Pant hitting a
Fire.
6 off his first ball when he, with his test debut. Where do these guys get the guts to do stuff like this? Absolutely inspiring.
Wonderful. Thank you, Faiz. We've run probably a little out of time.
Yeah.
Imagined.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed myself.
No, it's the pleasure's entirely mine. It didn't feel like this was a conversation. This just felt like two friends talking while having a cup of coffee.
Thank you so much.
So grateful for the opportunity.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.